guys, my name is Natasha and welcome back to my channel. Well, it seems that you still can see how messy my room is, so let's change something. So here I'm standing on the balcony of the apartment that I rent, and from this point I want to start my video. As you know, this is a channel about Russia and the Russian culture, and I'm trying to make videos every week, but for the past months I've been really busy, so I decided to collect interesting things that I have had this month and make like compilation of my September experiences. And as you know, I lived for 5 months in my small hometown Spassk, and I lived there just after I returned from the United States in March, and that time was really depressive, and I was really anticipating that time when I will go to Khabarovsk, to the city where my university is. And yeah, so now I'm the 4th year student and I'm graduating this year, and this year is going to be really important because I'm going to decide what I'm going to do after the university, and I have no idea because I will tell you about this someday. Yeah, I was supposed to live in the student dorm, and since my student dorm is now being repaired, they promised that it will be finished like 2 weeks ago. It's still being repaired. This is Russia, it's normal. Yeah, but they placed us to another dorm which is located in another district. So I came to Khabarovsk on the 31st of August, took my heavy bags, and I went to the dorm and I checked in. I got the keys from the typical Soviet-like dorm administrator woman, and I was supposed to live in a room with 3 other girls, but I also had a very good opportunity to live here in this apartment because actually this is the room that my sister was renting when she lived here. Now she lives in Vladivostok, she moved here recently, so I had this as like the second plan. I decided that I don't want to live in the dorm because it's just terrible, and Russian dorms, they're just terrible, and in the dorm they have 1 shower for the whole 5-story building, no privacy, and you have to wait in a long line to take a shower. So I was like, no, thank you, especially after that amazing dormitory that I had in the University of Minnesota when I was an exchange student. I just cannot accept that level. It's not that I'm so rich to afford an apartment. So the price for this room, not actually the whole apartment. I'm sharing this flat with 2 guys, my sister's friends, and we share a kitchen, toilet and bathroom, but I'm lucky to have my own room that you just saw, and I pay for it just 8,000 rubles per month, which is $100 per month. I know this doesn't tell you anything. You probably think like, wow, it's so cheap to live in Russia, but our prices and salaries are different too. Yeah, but still it's cheaper because 1-room apartment in Khabarovsk in the center of the city will cost 20,000 rubles, and mine is just 8,000 rubles. My classes actually have not started yet because the first months I'm supposed to have practice, and practice in Russian universities means like an internship. And at first I had to go to our local museum. It's called Khabarovsk Regional Grodakov Museum of Local Lore, something like this, and we had to study texts about exhibitions in this museum, and we have to play a role of a tour guide, and I really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed museum itself. And if you're ever going to visit Khabarovsk, you can go to that museum, and there are so many examples of our local flora and fauna, and there's even an example of a traditional Russian house of the settlers who were moving to the Far East 100 years ago. You can see that it looks like a traditional Russian izba or house, but it shows that this is in Asia because here you can see this Yin-Yang sign. And yeah, I really love our local history, and it was really interesting for me to learn about this all. And another part of this practice is my internship in Ministry of Emergency Situation. In Russian it's called MCS, and it's a really weird internship for a translator who I'm going to be after graduation probably. Yeah, my major is translation, English and Chinese languages, but I don't speak Chinese at all. And my task in that internship is to translate a really long technical text, and I really don't like this internship. And I once again understood that our Russian universities are just not supposed to prepare us for real real life, because my classmate, she's practicing in a tourist agency, and her only task is to put customers' names and numbers to the Excel table, and that's it. So there's no skills, it's not useful at all, you're just wasting your time. But one thing I liked about that Ministry of Emergency Situations is that there I saw how Russian lifesavers work, and we even had an event where we had to play roles of victims. So there was a training for the lifesavers, and we had to scream in English, because our task is to help to these Russian lifesavers to communicate with their foreign colleagues. Yeah, and my role there was to be an irritating journalist who would go to the lifesavers and constantly ask them about, oh my god, what happened? I was trying to do this, and they had to send me off because this is their job and it's really serious.
Здравствуйте, можете, пожалуйста, прокомментировать, что здесь происходит, чем вы занимаетесь?
Вы кто такая?
Я журналист, я вот.
Очень приятно. Девушка, произошло ДТП, оказывают пока что первую помощь. Ребята работают.
And there was one girl who decided to improvise, and she had just like emotional breakdown, and now let's find out what is happening.
Он мне сказал, нахрен тебе это ужасно! Ты знаешь, сколько она стоит, мать?
Yeah, and I'm glad that now, being back to the city, I'm finally around people. I also recently had a really interesting meeting with Nikita Proshin. He's a traveler and blogger. He's from Russia, but he lived for 5 years in China, 1 year in Thailand, and now he returned to Russia, and he commented under my video, and we decided to meet up in Khabarovsk and to film a video. And if you haven't watched it yet, you can watch it on my channel, and there we discussed how our perception of Russia changed after going abroad. We also discussed YouTube, how we make videos, and I really like his videos. I just like the quality there, and you can watch them and subscribe his channel as well. And right now I'm editing the captions to my video with Nikki. According to the YouTube's analytics, a fourth part of my viewers watch my videos with English captions, which probably means that people just don't understand my English. I'm sorry guys, it is what it is. So yeah, you can turn on the captions. For this month, I had 3 parties. Yeah, I went to a bar with my classmates, I went to another bar, I don't remember, and what I'm going to tell you about, I went to a gay club. It was a very unusual experience, and I went there with my classmate, her girlfriend, their friend, and it's just a usual nightclub, and I actually really didn't like the music there. I don't know, we had like a pre-game, so I drank just 2 bottles of beer, so I wasn't drunk enough to accept that music. There also was a low-key drag show, I filmed just a little.
А кто пришел ради УСУ? Дайте шум!
You're probably now really surprised, like I'm talking about a gay club in Russia, in a really homophobic country where the situation of gay people is really bad. And yes, it is really bad, and our government usually passes some really stupid discriminative laws, but we still have gay clubs in Russia. Yeah, and one day I will make a video about LGBT plus people's situation in Russia, and there's a lot to tell about.
Хватит нам пожрать за наши деньги! Позор! Они сейчас нажрались, а народ
And one more thing that I want to tell you about is the rallies that are happening now in Khabarovsk, and this protest started in July, and the reason of that is the arrest of Khabarovsk region governor Sergei Furgal, and I made a video about these protests back in July. And it's funny that a week ago when I went to that protest, our city administration turned on the classic music to just muffle people's voices. So today I wanted to visit the protest again and to put my contribution for the sake of freedom, but what happened? instead of listening to people and instead of giving their response, they just put the music there.
Уважаемые хабаровчане и гости краевой столицы, в 2020 году по всему миру проходят тысячи культурных событий, концертов, спектаклей и выставок в цифровом дистанционном формате. Хабаровский край не стал...
And it looks really surreal when we were screaming and there was classic music playing. So the rally has ended. Few people remained, and behind me there's such a nice aisle. It's made with balloons with the Khabarovsk Krai color. And it's just a big disrespect from our city governor who just decided to do this gesture to the people that they don't care about our protests and they don't even want to hear us. I'm not that politically literate, but I'm politically active, especially about this situation that is happening here in my region, and I'm really glad that I can participate in this. Yeah, so now I live alone, and actually my first experience of this adult life, because during my first 2 years in Khabarovsk I lived in a student dorm with my sister. I was always around people, and then my third year of studies was spent in the United States, where I lived on beautiful campus with a lot of events, and I would meet 100 people every day. I felt so entertained in that time, and now I feel just alone, and I was so excited about returning to the big city and starting socializing again. But I also, for these months, have had, I don't know what you call it, like communication crisis. So it is really hard to return to communication with people again. And I'm so used to my communication in the internet. I have so many internet friends, not only people who I met online, but people who I once met in person. For example, the guys from other Russian cities who also participated in that exchange program in America. And it's so strange. I have 1,700 followers on Instagram. When I post stories, people watch my stories, they answer to me, but I never meet these people in real life. I'm overwhelmed by some internet messages, and sometimes people are messaging me like, hey, I watch your videos, great work, keep it up. And now I'm on that level when I'm able to answer every comment and every message, and I write like thank you, yes. But at the same time I have to say that every message like this really cheers me up. I feel energy and motivation to keep up working on my videos, and I have so many ideas, so there will be many videos ahead. You know guys, this video is about 20 minutes long, but there are about 20,000 minutes in a month, so I show you a really small part, collection of the most colorful events of this month. But at the same time, I have been feeling really bad. Even though I didn't have classes, I had to study for some tests in my university, and I've been feeling really lazy. I didn't want to do this, and I was not really productive, and it also has something to do with my physical state, with my health. And you know guys, when you hear that in Russian medical care is free, it's not completely true, because here we have like public clinics, but it's terrible, and some particular types of medical help are not even possible to get in the public clinic, and you have to go to a private clinic anyway. So I've been spending my money and time on it, and I'm afraid of thinking about the future of how I'm going to cope with it. And now I'm not going to tell you about my problems, because this is just a video vlog about Russia, about my life in Russia, but I cannot tell you everything. And because you also don't want to think about problems of other people, right? Because people care about their own problems, and it's normal. So I just cannot stand here and rant like, oh my god, I'm so bad, I need help. But at the same time, I feel that there's no like outlet, there's no place where I can share my problems, my struggles. Nobody can support me or hear me out, and I just cannot accept this fact that I am on my own and that I have to deal with these problems. I think it's one of adulting stages. You have to learn how to live this life, how to make money, and how to be independent. And I actually started feeling more independent lately, and I'm really proud of this because I started working, I started giving Russian lessons, and a couple of people messaged me after one of my videos where I announced that I want to teach Russian, and now I am earning some money through that lessons. I've also been getting some income from my patrons, so thank you guys, thank you my patrons who pledged me some money. I really appreciate it. It's like now I can rely at least on something, and yeah, I feel really sustained. You know, I'm not going to the minus. At least I earn money to buy food, to pay this rent, and to afford some medical care. And maybe in the next months I'm going to earn and to save up more money so that I will be able to buy a new camera and to improve the quality of my videos. And yeah, but now I'm not in debt, you know. And when I was studying my first 2 years in Khabarovsk, I didn't really work. I wasn't tutoring English. When I was spending a year in the United States, I couldn't work as well because my life there was really eventful, and also because I wasn't allowed to work because of my visa status. So now it's my first working experience. Actually, no, I had some earnings in Spassk, like, you know, when you're putting advertises or when you are interviewing people, but it was really small income for teenagers. It was just like pennies. And now I'm so glad that I'm finally starting to learn how to be adult. Yeah, but you know guys, link to my Patreon is under this video. I think it's a good underline of my video. I'm in Khabarovsk, I'm studying, I'm working on my videos, and I'm working on working. Yeah, but there was one more thing today that made me really sad. Probably you heard that news about a Russian journalist who set herself on fire in front of the police building in the city of Nizhny Novgorod. And this woman, she was a really honest journalist making research about corruption, and because of her activity, because of her journalist work, she was repressed. And yesterday the Russian FBI, FSB, searched in her house, and by their Gulag tradition they knocked at her door at 6 a.m. They didn't actually knock at the door, they just used this particular type of saw to cut the door, and she was like sleeping with her husband, and it's just horrible. And FSB took all their laptops and so on. They usually do this to Russian oppositioners. And yeah, I'm saying they usually do this because this is something that we Russian people are used to. But this woman, this journalist, she couldn't stand this. It is not normal for our 21st century. When I read this news, I don't know, I cried today for 3 times. I felt such a controversy in my mind because recently they poisoned Navalny. Now they just drove a person to kill herself. And I'm showing to you a really good and positive Russia. I'm telling you about our Russian culture, Russian food, I don't know, Russian language. You should discover it, you should come to Russia. But at the same time, a biggest part of the perception of Russia that I have today is that negativeness of our political situation and how people suffer. And I just feel that I'm not showing you the real thing, you know? But at the same time, it will be hard for me to explain to you the real political situation in Russia, and it will be hard for you to understand it because you don't have the same cultural background. And I think that there are things in every country that tourists don't have to know about. I mean that you still can go to Russia, you can enjoy this country, the people, and you don't need to know about these problems. Yeah, so Russia is not only this gulag-like FSB, Putin, and stupid laws. Russia is also a really nice, amazing country that I really love. This is the end of my video. Thank you for watching. Tap your likes, write your comments. I'm going to make a Q&A video, so you can write your questions under this video or to my Instagram or to my email. The links to it you can see in the description of my channel or just under this video. And yeah, so write your questions, whether you want to know something about Russia, about life in Russia, or about myself. Thank you, be safe, and see you soon. Bye!